Alright, so we just got into Banff, Alberta, Canada. We got about 2.5 days to spend. I haven't been here since I was a kid. I'm excited to see what we can do. Okay, so we end up spending 2.5 days in Banff National Park. We've seen all the main attractions, but we were also traveling with locals who literally visit this area every other weekend. So I think I have a few hidden gems in this travel guide video of Banff National Park. We were camping and stayed at the Tunnel Mountain Campground, which is just outside of downtown Banff. Now, the Tunnel Mountain Campground books up very fast. But if you arrive early and just show up at the front gate, they always have canceled bookings. Just a heads up, later in this video, I'll show you a campground in Banff, which almost always has availability. Our friends from Calgary always use it as a last resort and never have a problem. Okay, so on day one, we really tried to get to Lake Moraine, the most iconic lake in Banff National Park, but alright, so our first stop is Lake Louise. When we got here at 8 a.m., the parking lot was full. We couldn't even get to Lake Moraine, but this one's just as good. Now, Lake Louise is a 2-kilometer glacier-fed lake very close to Moraine Lake. You are just much more likely to find parking here at Lake Louise, and we really didn't want to take the bus shuttle service. You have Chateau Lake Louise Hotel that's right on Lake Louise, but I'm warning you now, there will be a lot of people here. This entire side of the lake was loaded with tourists. You'll really have to get creative to avoid the crowds of people and get that epic photo of Lake Louise. Honestly, this park's been pretty cool. I just wish the fog would have disappeared because I think the views would have been spectacular. The fog was really the biggest downside when we were at Lake Louise. This is what it should have looked like from the Chateau Lake Louise, overlooking Lake Louise. There are quite a few trails you can hike at Lake Louise. We ultimately decided on hiking up to Lake Agnes and the Tea House. It's about an hour or two depending on how quickly you want to do it. It's a beautiful trail and there's a few interesting spots to make along the way. This is Mirror Lake. The fog was so heavy that at the time it didn't look like anything interesting, but this is what it should have looked like if the fog wasn't there. Just before you get to the tea house, you have this waterfall right at the side of the mountain, which probably would have had some breathtaking views, but again, the fog. When we got to Agnes Lake and the tea house, it really wasn't anything that impressive. You could see hints that it could have been very beautiful, but the fog just made everything almost impossible to see. Finally made the tea house and we have no cash. Okay, so as for the tea house, they only accepted cash, but I have a feeling they'll probably fix that pretty soon. It was rather expensive though, with limited food options, so I would recommend packing up a snack. Now, not until later did we realize this is what the view from Agnes Lake should have looked like. Oh man, the fog screwed us over that day. There were quite a few trails here and I wish I had more time to explore some of them, but we already had spent quite a bit of time here at Lake Louise, so we decided to see what else we could do in Banff National Park. So after Lake Louise, we tried to get into Lake Moraine, couldn't do it, so we headed back into Banff and visited Lake Minnewanka. Second stop, Lake Minnewanka. This lake is so close to Banff, you can actually get here by public transportation. So like Lake Louise, this lake can get pretty crowded. It's not as bad as Lake Louise, but there were still quite a few people here when we visited. The views were nice, but unless you're planning on taking one of the boat tours, you want to rent a boat, or you just plan to go hiking, there really isn't much to do here. So this wasn't really a standout memory for me. As we were heading back though, we passed by Two Jacks Lake. we sort of had to stop. The lake was quite a bit smaller, but it was a lot less crowded. I actually had a really relaxing time here. And there is a campground in the area. I believe it's a first come first served campground, but if you can't find a place to stay, this one will almost always have something. It would likely be an unserviced site, but hey, you found a place to stay for the night. These are what our local friends use as a last resort if they can't find anything in the area. Now, if you visit Banff, I feel like you have to check out downtown Banff. There's so many restaurants, museums, things to do right in the town of Banff. You definitely get that small town, winter town feel from the city. Oh, and every fall they hold a movie festival in this theater, which is something I've been meaning to check out. Generally speaking, there's just a lot of unique things you can do in this town that I can't name them all, but if you are looking for something free to do in downtown Banff, you might want to check out some of the viewpoints in and around the city. They have the Bow Falls viewpoint. This is near the Fairmount Banff Springs and right on the Bow River. Again, a lot of tourists were here, but it has some nice views of the river, and you'll likely only need half an hour here. Okay, so Surprise Corner viewpoint is right on the opposite side of the Bow River. You are higher up, and it's a lot less crowded, but there's limited parking. The last viewpoint I'm going to show you is... Alright, so there's so many viewpoints all around here. This one's one of my favorite. That's Tunnel Mountain. So the Tunnel Mountain viewpoint was actually right across the street from the Tunnel Mountain campground we were staying at. There's apparently actually a few different viewpoints and hiking trails right around here, but unfortunately we never got a chance to explore them. If you are curious as to why they call it Tunnel Mountain, I know I was. It's because they were originally planning on building a railroad through the mountain because it was just so small. They never did, obviously. Alright, so on day 2, we were on a mission. Alright, so we're heading to Moraine Lake. This is day 2. The first day we couldn't do it. It's just packed. You like almost can't get in here. So we're gonna try again and see what happens. Oh my god, we actually got in. Like yesterday, they just had people, they were turning everyone away. They stopped everyone, people were trying to get into this park and they couldn't do it. You have to take the shuttle service, it's like 5 kilometers away from here. But we just drove right by, we drove right on in. This is amazing. I can't explain how lucky we were to find parking at Moraine Lake. The parking lot is so small and the shuttle service is a bit of a hassle, time consuming, and you might even have to pay. I'm not sure. This was my first time here and the first views of Moraine Lake were insanely gorgeous. There's a lot to do here, so I'll try and cover some of them. We immediately climbed up the rock pile, which is only 10 minutes from the parking lot. Basically everyone does this, so it's going to be crowded, but you know what? You'll find some insane views of Moraine Lake. We headed back down and was planning on renting a canoe, but it was $120 an hour. So if you want those Instagram shots, you're definitely gonna have to pay for it. We decided just to walk along the lake. Moraine Lake is surprisingly small, so you can easily walk to the other end of the lake in less than an hour. But there are so many amazing spots to capture photos that it took us a lot longer. There's quite a few more hiking trails you can do in this area, but we just didn't have the time. I definitely want to come back and check them out next time though. Alright, so that's Moraine Lake. We started at the rock pile, we walked down to the other end, and you know what? It's so much less touristy the farther away from the parking lot you get. Alright, off to our next stop. So after seeing Moraine Lake and previously seeing Lake Louise the other day, we ended up going for a drive. This one's about an hour's drive west of Lake Moraine, Lake Louise, but totally worth it. Alright, so I see this on the internet and I wanted to check it out. It's Takakkaw Falls. Takakkaw Falls is definitely a hidden gem that's not talked about a lot, but very much worth visiting if you're traveling from Calgary to anywhere in British Columbia. It's the second tallest waterfall in Canada, and even at the end of summer, this thing was running strong. I don't even want to know what this place looks like in spring. Takakkaw, which means magnificent in Cree, is really the only way to describe it. On the way back, and something you're really gonna love about Banff National Park is the amount of wildlife you'll see. This black bear was literally meters from our vehicle and wasn't bothered one bit. It just went about doing its thing. These deers completely ignored the fact that they were so close to downtown Banff and all the tourists and just went about doing its thing. You could literally walk right up beside it and it wasn't scared of anybody. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it makes for some incredible memories. Alright, so it's our last day in Banff. There's really so many things you can do out here. I wasn't even prepared or expecting it. You can spend weeks out here and just never do it all. But hopefully you found some of these tips helpful. I'm really excited to show you this last stop we're gonna make. Last day here in Banff. This is the cave in Basin. When I first heard about it, I was like, oh man, this sounds so cool. So I'm excited to check it out. Spoiler alert, we end up doing quite a bit on our last day. So the cave in Basin was something we had originally planned on seeing when we were looking up things to do in Banff and had no idea what it actually was. It just sounded kind of cool, so that's why we end up here. It turned out there's actually a lot of history here. It only costs $5 to get in, and I would highly recommend taking a free tour while you're here. They go about every hour and very much worth it. If you're interested in any history of Banff, or you just want to find some activities that's sort of indoors, this is the place to be. We must have spent 2 hours here. So, as we were driving back home, we sort of made a last-minute decision to visit Johnston Canyon. This can take you anywhere from an hour to 4 hours depending on how far and fast you want to take it, but I can be pretty quick at hiking, so we decided to take it on. I'm so glad we did. You are essentially walking along the canyon with walkways and pathways built over top Johnston Creek just before it runs into the Bow River. It must have taken Johnston Creek over thousands of years to cut through the rock to form these amazing viewpoints, waterfalls, and tunnels. I only walked to the lower falls and the line just to take a picture through the cave with the waterfall in the background must have been over half an hour long, but I'm sure you can get some incredible pictures if you're willing to wait it out. Alright, we just got back from Johnston Canyon. It ended up being way better than I thought it was going to be. You know what? I was on the fence if we should go. People kept recommending it, and I didn't regret it. This next stop, though, I'm super stoked to do it. Yeah, let me show you. So before we get to our last stop, we decided to drive back home to British Columbia, going through the least talked about national park. This is Kootenay National Park. It's definitely just as nice of a drive as the other 3 national parks in the area. There's just not as many stops to make. This one, though, was definitely worth it. The original photograph seen here was taken in 1932 by Brian Harmon. I personally love history like this, so I thought it was pretty neat comparing what the drive looks like today to what it looked like in 1932. So I'm guessing you probably figured out where we're heading to. Radium Hot Springs. It's about 2 hours from Banff, and of course Banff has its hot springs, but I heard Radium Hot Springs is just way less crowded, bigger, and newer facilities. But alright, so we're at Radium Hot Springs, and you know what? I see no one in the parking lot, and I was so stoked until we got here and found out it was closed. There was a mudslide during summer or something, so we probably have the worst luck ever. But I'll show you what it looks like. You know what? Just make sure before you head out, it's open and there's no problems. This is crazy. We were right behind this guy and he was zooming pretty fast, and I guess he skidded off the road. We didn't see it, but we seen this. It's crazy. This has to be the end of the Banff video. If you have any suggestions, leave it down in the comment section below. I didn't see everything. It was 48 hours, 72 hours in Banff and Lake Louise. If you have any suggestions, leave it down in the comment section below. Leave a like if you're still watching, and until later, I'll see you later.